There we go.
Ah, yes. Sego. Nice to see everyone. It's this is a real pleasure. I have to say, this week has been a week full of love for me, and knowing that we have our relatives and grandmas and uncles and grandpas and elders that are taking care of us during this time, to know that you're guiding us through teachings and beautiful words. I know it's helped my spirit and kept my spirits up during this time. So it's really wonderful to see everyone, and for those of you joining us this evening, thank you for being here. And I'd like to acknowledge just how important it is that you continue to show up even in this space, because as the grandmas have told us, we feel the vibration. We feel the love when we come together, even through technology. So I'd like to just welcome everyone from the four directions, and welcome Grandma Renee this week. I've seen you so many times, and I love it. I just can't help but be excited. And Dennis, I've our community is so blessed that you have the time and energy and space to come out and be with us. So welcome. Thanks for being
Wow.
with us.
Yes, welcome, Dennis. We're going to have another adventure of sitting with us, sitting with your grandparents, sitting with your family. And it's most important because times like this, winter was a time of sitting around the fire. So you can see my fire in the background. I have my fire lit. Um, I'm missing my wood stove, but we're going to improvise. So I put a fire up there. So you'll come to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and we're going to spend some time with us, and we're going to share with you. Remember when? Because we all need that. I used to hear those stories when I was young too, and I would always look forward to the evenings because soon as it was dark, after all our chores were done, my grandma would always say, "Well, it's time," and it was so adventurous in their stories because I grew up when there was no TVs, and so when someone came to visit, they shared stories. And no matter how cold it was out there, no matter how deep the snow was, it always seemed that we were lucky to have visitors because they were checking in on us, and that's what we can do tonight. So we like to check in on you. How are you doing tonight? And we want to send out prayers to each and every one of you. And so I'm going to ask our visiting that he's gone, his initial visit, and ask Dennis if he could do an opening for us so that we can get started.
Oh, language. Thank you. So, first of all, I just want to say Happy New Year, everybody. And what a new year it is, eh?
Hmm.
It might seem the same and or worse, but it's still a happy new year. So I just want to say, Chimigwich, thank everyone, thank our ancestors. Zongoy benes dijnikaz, biju adotem, nigigunsminikaning donji. Um, so I want to give thanks to our Creator and to all of creation, all of life, the animals, the fish, the everything that depends on all the medicines that we have out there on the land. And I say a prayer for our families, our communities, and the ones that feel alone as we go through this period in our lives, and to know that we can share our stories, and I hope those stories bring light and bring some fond memories of love, collective sharing, and being together, and having that human to human connection, that spirit to spirit connection. So I say Kachimi Gwich, Mishomis, and thank you.
Thank you. Well, I like how you started. New Year's, Happy New Year's. And when you hear that, to us, we would holler, New Year, New Year, New Year. And it was like, we would, no matter how cold it was, no matter how, we would just bundle up. It was like we were walking around, be all covered right up. Mask. I gotta tell you, mask isn't new. We walked around in the wintertime like this with masks. We used our scarf or we used something to cover
Yeah.
our face. So I think I'm already groomed for the mask.
Yes.
Oh, so this was really important for laughter, to start off that new year in laughter, because what is happening is we forget to laugh, and that's one of the greatest gifts the Creator give us. We are truly blessed to have such a Creator that He had abundance of laughter inside Him, and when He give us life, He breathed in, and you know what? He put in extra humor in us, so we have this really good belly laughs, and I can imagine how the Creator is watching us now, and He's probably having. Him and the ancestors they had some good laughs long time ago. And that's why we're here tonight, is to say New Year and Happy New Year's. And we send blessings on to you.
Oh, miigwech. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm sure we all have good memories, right, of our lives, and it's not only those bad traumatic memories, but we have some good memories, good teachings that we've had throughout life. When I think about wintertime, I always think about that potbelly stove, about that, there's no electricity. We would sit on the floor and listen to our father, talk about giving us teachings, telling us stories, legends, and we would just listen and hold on to his every words, because he was such a good storyteller, like many of our people, right? We have the gift of storytelling, and that's a big part of our culture. And he always talked about wintertime is when you tell these stories. It's the time of the year when the days are shorter, the nights, it gets dark early, and you come together as a family and spend time together as a family, and you listen. So I acknowledge that light back there, that's your fire, and and it reminds me of that. And you know those early experiences are actually woven into a lot of the work that I do today. So to me, it's not past, it's actually present, it's actually right now, and it's tools that we need to have, and it brings good memories of family. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share.
Well, I would like to share. This is my little gingerbread man. Well, we had in our way, we always we look forward to winters, because we would know that on New Year's Day we were going to go and see our community. We were going to walk and walk and walk and walk. We would walk a whole concession, then some, to just go and get some donuts. And we always knew where the best donuts were. So you had to wake up early if you wanted to get it before it was all gone. You had to get there early. And so it was one of the things that we already knew who was the best ones to give out all the goodies. And so it's so sad today that a lot of our the people have never had that chance. And it's sad, because we had taken a friend of ours, her daughter, with us, and we were showing her, because she's never ever been out. We picked her up and we said we were going out, and she was about 5 years old or 6,
Mhm.
and she said, when we got back in the car with all our goodies, she says, "This is just like Halloween." We said it's better than Halloween. This is an old tradition. Halloween is just young. And so while we were out there, my kids got, eventually I would take my children out, my grandchildren out, and now it's my great grandchildren. And so I was out there one day, and I mean, out doing Nuyan, but this time I'm in a car, and my grandkids, you got them all bundled up, and they can't hardly walk. And we get to the door, and they holler Nuya, and then and then they get their goodies, and we have to waddle back in and get in. I have to help them up to get them in the car, and then after a while they said, Totah, I can't do it anymore. And so I said, okay, I'll go to the door for you. So I go there all by myself. I'm hollering, Nuya, Nuya. And my neighbor comes to the door, and he goes, kind of old for this. Isn't kind of old, isn't it? I said, oh, yeah, this is a real old tradition. I said, I've been doing it. And you have been doing it, and you're older than me.
Mhm.
So what kind of tradition you had for New Year's?
What kind of tradition? Just, a lot of it was around storytelling, just getting together, going out sliding, just enjoying life out there. Because I grew up in that time also where we didn't really have we didn't have electricity.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have running water. We're the ones that ran for the water, right? And I remember being that little boy back in the community. My father would make these little pails, right, out of tin cans, and that was our water bucket. So that's what I was hauling water with. And as I grew older, we grew older. Our buckets became bigger and bigger. but as far as New Year's, some of the other memories I do recall later on is my parents gathering with other family, with extended family like my aunts, my uncles, and they would sing at the drum. They would sing at the drum, and they would sing and just sing all these different songs, throughout the weekend. So to me it was like a ceremony. When I look back at it, it was a ceremony. They would sing these different songs, and they would talk about the songs. I didn't really know what they really talked about, because they always spoke in Ojibwe in Anishinaabe, and by then I wasn't really fluent in it. I would pick up some of the words, but they would talk in this Anishinaabe, right? And then they would laugh, so then we would laugh with them, even though we didn't know what they were talking about. But it was just, laughter is contagious, right? And we share laughter. When other people laugh, it can bring people up. So it's a good medicine. But I guess that's one memory I have, is passing that drum back and forth. My father knew many songs. My uncle, he knew a lot of songs, and songs and stories, and that's what they would do. So I do have, I never really thought about that until actually just now.
Yeah, we would, New Year's Eve, our family would be around sitting in, but our parents would always say, well, you know what's happening tomorrow. It was like a double Christmas. It was a double Christmas because, at Christmas, we couldn't get a lot of things. Oranges was out of the question having it every week. And so when Christmas came, we got oranges, and that was a real special treat. We really had to wash our socks out because we didn't have store-bought socks, and we always asked our father, because he would have those long socks, like
Yeah.
those gray socks, and we'd always ask Dad, "Can we use your socks?" Because we wanted to get more, but we never did get more. All we got was one orange, one cookie. I mean, some nuts and the hard candy. And that
Mhm.
was a way of sharing the wealth. We all got equal, and it was a time of really appreciating how much our parents. When I grew up, I really my dad and mom must have went out for extra just to get that orange. They hid it during so that we didn't know that they had that orange for us. And when we tasted that orange, oh, it was like a special treat. And so we look forward to New Year's Day and having those. We never had candy, you know. You know, none of our people had candies all the time, and we would have this hard candy. We would have the red ones and the red striped ones and the green ones and all these different colors, and we would really take one at a time because we know that we weren't going to be getting candy all the time. So that was a treat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you mentioned that, I do recall we did make our own candy, right? We would get the snow, and I think today you would call it slushies or ice cones, and we would make our own snacks or treats, and so that was a special time, and we only did that around that time of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing like I come from a small family of 12, right? There are 12 of us. So,
Me too.
yeah. Well, I remember the size of the turkey my mother would cook. That was a task because she would start in the evening, right? And it would be ready by the next day, but she would tend to that, and she would it was just a celebration. It was a celebration throughout the whole night, and just gathering, hearing stories, and family just coming together. And that is so different from today, right? Because today we have so much distractions. We sit around in a circle with everyone with their cell phones and messaging. But back then, when you think about connection, right, we actually had to connect because we didn't have those distractions, all that stuff that disconnects us, and so we would play games, we would listen to stories, we would go sliding, we would watch my
Yeah.
mother make that turkey, and just waiting for it to be ready, but it fed us and it fed everybody. It took a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see one of the chat how our candies would get stuck in our sock, and we would have all that
Yeah,
fuzz on the lint on it, and we go,
yeah. We
but we never threw it away. We kept on.
we had those woolen socks, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can still buy those socks today.
So this year for New Year's, one of my students, she came to my house and she dropped off little brown bags, New Year, and she just brought tears to my eyes because I opened it. It was just like, poof! I was back in when I was a young girl, and I saw my orange, and I went, "Oh, what a sacred gift!"
Yeah.
Because we couldn't get it all the time, and I
Uh-huh.
really appreciate it. And it was just so medicine for me. I felt like I was just a young girl again.
Hmm.
And when you were talking about gay, being around, talking about stories and everything, did you ever play crokinole?
No, I'm not sure. What is that?
Oh, this is that finger action. Oh,
Oh,
they had little pucks. It was like a big board, and it had rings in it, and in the center they had these pins that would prevent you from making a pocket. In the center there was a hole, and you had these little pucks, and you would have there was before if you're playing, and you had
mhm,
to be sitting across. Oh, that was a real good game. So I
mm,
brought that out for my kids this year for Christmas because I introduced them to it. We had gone camping, and we went where there was no electricity and everything. And so I said, well, I have a game for you. And so, man, we played that every night. They didn't even miss Hydro. They didn't even miss TV. They just wanted to hurry up and finish supper and get at that crokinole game. And so,
oh, crokinole, yeah.
yeah. That's one of the old games. I wonder if everybody else had that. Yeah, I see that somebody else had sore fingers.
Oh,
Sore fingers, yeah.
mm.
It was a game. So what kind of games did you play?
Oh, mainly activities like we would go out skating, play hockey. Not 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 the kind of hockey where you need equipment.
We
We, we
couldn't
were
afford
we
it.
were tough back then. We would throw a hard puck and no equipment, and we'd have a lot of people out. It was great. Yeah,
Yeah,
and of course there's board games. If people got if if we got board games for during Christmas, we'd play it throughout into the New Year and throughout that whole holiday season. Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So are you a checker champ?
A checker champ? No, not really. Wasn't very good at board games. They didn't really interest me.
Oh,
I was more into like activities, right? On the move. To be on the
oh,
move. Yeah. So sliding was good. Skating was good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Running, just playing in the snow was good.
yeah.
Making angels, snow angels. Yeah.
And making your forts,
Yeah. Yeah.
creating your
Yeah.
forts.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think, you know, having that summer, we always seem to look forward to the winter because we knew it was a time of more family. Your father's going to be home. Your father was or
hmm
family would come in, relatives would come in and they would visit. And I think this is what we're missing, is just that. I think this is what this new generation, these younger ones, and we need to bring back those board games. We
hmm
need to bring back the excitement and the laughter. And it's so sad that everyone goes to their rooms and or go to their rooms and watch TV. And it was predicted that we must be very careful of this gift that was going to come to us, and it would take our spirit. And I see that it has happened. So I'd like to see that we would get back to our board games. And my dad, we had 12, 12 and plus the neighbor's kids would come over. And my
hmm
father would always say, I'm feeding just the first 12, whoever gets up to the table. So he can, and
hmm
all our mornings we had, I know people don't like oatmeal, but I really appreciate having oatmeal because it was our survival food. It was
Yeah.
the one that made us more resilient and got us through the winter. And to this very day, I still have it, and I have it for supper, just like my grandpa.
hmm
Did you ever fry your oatmeal?
No, I just ate it with. I would mix it up with cornflakes and brown sugar
Oh,
and milk. They called it back home. They called it that's the Windego meal. Yeah, my,
yeah,
my
that's a new one.
yeah. My friend couldn't understand why I would make my cereal like that. Just like I couldn't understand how he would fry up his spaghetti and meatballs and make spaghetti and meatball sandwiches. So and he would have it for breakfast.
Yeah, my grandpa taught me how to. He says, oatmeal isn't just for breakfast. It's anytime you have that craving. And so a lot of times I would
hmm
have to cook oatmeal for him in the evening.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was, when
I
I
love.
smell oatmeal, I think of all those good memories.
Yeah, when they would bring when we would snare rabbits, so my mother would make oatmeal with the rabbits, and that was really good. And sometimes we'd have, what do you call that? Um, you make it out of flour, and it's like um, oh, I can't even remember what it's called. Dumpling, like a dumpling. Yeah.
Oh, you had that too?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Rabbit with oatmeal and dumpling and Oh, geez, I'm just getting hungry now.
Well, we had my dad would get us muskrat, and the rabbits were pretty big back then.
Mm-hmm.
They're no, they're not around like they used to be. We'd always
Mm-hmm.
try and go and catch those rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I like to share another story about it was our survival food. It was when you start talking about it, it reminded me of dumplings. It was like dumplings and in
Okay.
our territory, in the Haudenosaunee territory, well, and mostly on Six Nation that I know of anyways, maybe on other reserves too, they would I can't remember what they called it in the in the language, but my grandmother was um, shared her recipe with the family, so it had become a tradition with my mom's family.
Mm-hmm.
And our great grandmother would always be cooking this because she would have a big gang, and she had a big family, and she wanted to make sure everybody ate. So she had always lots of flour, so she would make this dumpling,
Yeah.
and we would put, instead of water, we would have milk mixed with
Mm-hmm.
water, and then she would put the dumplings in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was a big pot of dumplings, and so we would be we would each one get about 3 or 4 dumplings, and that filled us up for the full day. But what we did was we put brown sugar on it. Oh my God, that's a memory.
Yeah.
And we had called it witch soup.
Oh.
I don't know why they called it witch soup. I asked them, and they said they don't know why they called it that witch soup. But other people down on all throughout the reserve, they have heard it, but they use another name for it.
Okay.
Anyways, so we've always my mother's family would always exchange that. Whenever we had breakfast together, one of our cousins would call up and say, "I'm making witch soup." Oh, everybody would just get over there, and we have that good memory. And so my mother had passed away in July,
Mm-hmm.
and early in the morning, and so our cousins heard that, and they came over. They brought their big pot. They brought that big bag of flour, and they started cooking that, and they started making it for us. It was our family treat, and so our undertaker comes. He's pretty well liked in our community, and he knows the language and everything. And so we invited him. Oh, Richard, stay for breakfast. He says, "Oh no, well maybe. What are you having?" He says, "Which soup?" He goes, "What in the dickens is that?" So we described it. He said, "Oh, I think I'll have a rain check." And so, we would, he remembered that. So every time we were at a funeral for one of our community gang, he'd come over and stand beside us. He goes, "Hey, witch. There's the witch gang."
Oh.
So those are, it was very medicinal at that time, when you're so heavy and grieving, and
Mm-hmm.
and Richard would come over and he would say, "Ah, there's the witch gang," and then we
Oh.
would all start laughing.
Yeah.
And it is it's one of those medicines that we needed when we are grieving, or when we need to get together or build up our
Mm-hmm.
spirit. It was just that food, a simple food, a
Yes.
simple food.
Yeah. The
Right.
connection it has, to your family, to history. Yeah. Food is passed down from one generation to the next. And
Yeah.
the stories that go with food.
Yeah. The stories, oh my gosh. Well, it was cliffhangers sometimes.
No.
They would
Uh-huh.
they would stop and they would say, "Well, we'll see you tomorrow night."
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Everybody we lived in those little houses. It's amazing, 12,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that time there was half of us were in that little house.
Mm-hmm.
But then the neighbors' kids would come over, and we had just one room, the living room. Then we would have another room attached to it was our kitchen area. And then we have one room upstairs, and that's where, so it was, we didn't have separate bedrooms. We had, and we didn't have a lot of blankets.
Mhm.
So you can imagine, oh, we had heat. It was each other. So
Oh,
that's why we just snuggle into one another.
yeah.
And so, you know, our niece and our nephews and our grandchildren, they'll say, tell us a story, tell us a story. And they can't believe that, you know, how we came through all those, and we still laugh today. We
Hmm.
went through those hard times.
Yeah.
We had a time without, but you know, that laughter was the medicine that the Creator gave us to
Yes.
get us through.
Yeah. That's right. And that's the life we knew, right? Like we didn't. How could we miss technology when we didn't have it? How could we miss electricity when we didn't have it? You know, it. I remember, we would have the Coleman lamps and also some candles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we would use. But at, I guess when people hear about that, they might think, "Wow, that must have been a hard life," but it was enjoyable life, and because you have to work for everything, right?
Hmm.
When you talk about the house, I remember as an adult, when I got older, I went to that house that we grew up in uh, before we relocated to where our community is now. And back then, as a kid, right, I thought, wow, we have such a big house. I went back there. It wasn't much to it. There wasn't much to it. I think it was like two rooms, two bedrooms. It was pretty small, but boy, we were so comfortable there, and it was like we all knew what our roles were, right? You get the water, you go out and go out and see if you can catch a rabbit, and yeah, my father was a logger, and what was so exciting about that is they would get these horses, this horse. They would bring this horse and they would go in the bush, and that horse would haul the logs out of the bush. And I always wanted to ride that horse, but of course we weren't allowed to, right? That horse wasn't there for our enjoyment like that. Yeah. Because when I seen the evolution of logging, people would bring in skidders and all this machinery that tears up the land and everything. But back then they had to work hard, and they used horses to get the logs out of the bush, and you know all of that. I thought, wow,
Yeah.
too bad it was gone by the time I grew up and I became a logger myself. I was like, geez, I would have loved to know how to work with horses.
I know you always hear that word. Oh, it must have been hard.
Yeah.
I said no. I said it was just natural because we were groomed for it. We were conditioned for it. It wasn't hard. It was just like this is the thing to do. It
Hmm.
we were, I guess you would say, resilient when,
Hmm.
and the coal. Oh man, I love that coal, and I hope every one of you right now is really appreciative that this cold weather is coming right now. It is a special gift, and that was one of the stories that I was told. Never to complain when we get heavy snowfall. Never complain when we get the real cold, because that's a Creator's way of taking care of us. And he says, because they said man's going to forget and cause a lot of things that will be in the air. At the time, the old people didn't know it was called virus, and there will be a lot of things in the air that will cause much sickness. And so what that cold and those snow is to bring all those things that are floating about that are causing a lot of health problems. And so it would be taking that life out of that virus and crushing it and put it in the earth. And so this is why I look forward when I know that it's going to And we must be very special because look at how it came back. It came
Mhm.
back. It came back. And when I heard that, I went, wow, we are loved. We are really loved. And I'm glad that I can share this story that was given to me because,
Mhm.
I even have to go up north sometimes in our past winters because I couldn't see my breath. I have to see my breath. And I know that the Creator, when I see my breath, that is really, really a strong message because the Creator is going to take care of us. And that's
Mhm.
what I really like to thank them for telling me about it so I wouldn't grow up complaining.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it is. It is good. I mean, I've always enjoyed the snow, except for when I
Mm.
have to drive a long distance, right? I'm not enjoying it too much then. But if I have a chance to be home like I am now, and we have a big blanket of snow, and they say it's the most snow we've had in years, I just say
Yeah.
great. I'm glad. I I even went out, just to walk in the snow. It was so deep. It was feels good, to
Yeah.
just to have all that, and because you don't um it wasn't very we didn't have very much snow, like around Christmas and New Year's, but now it's here, and it just very welcoming. And anyway, for me anyway.
It
Yeah.
was for me too.
Yeah.
The other story that was shared too that the old people would always talk about was if there was a green winter, there was going to be much sadness. And
Mm-hmm.
so in our community, we have had abundance of sadness. There has been a lot of ones that have journeyed back home. And
Mm-hmm.
so my friend and I were talking about she called me to tell me someone else had journeyed home, and I said, yeah, we had a green Christmas, and that's I kind of knew that this was going to happen. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm going to, they used to talk about our people having a rain dance, to bring the rain and clear away. I said, I think I'm going to dance. I said, that smoke dance? I'm going to change it into a snow dance and I'm going to dance
Uh-huh.
just to make fun,
Yeah.
and so she calls me up when it's really started to snow. She says, you can quit dancing now.
Yeah. Brought enough snow.
So yeah, it's it's times like this. So even looking at the moon at night in the
Mm-hmm.
wintertime seems so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stars seem so close to you, and especially that full moon. Oh my gosh, that's the first time I ever saw her out so early. It was the night before the full moon, and she was way up in the sky, and it was like, whoa. And to have that, that, and the, I'm saying the grandmother, she
Mm-hmm.
brought that snow for us
Mm-hmm.
because she cares for us. And that's what people they need to be reminded of. These stories, we need to share them of how nature is always going to be there to help us and support us. But we have to remember too, because we create this. We created what they call um, no winters. We cause that unbalance in life
Mm-hmm.
because what do we say? Oh, I just want Christmas. And after that the snow can go away.
No. Uh-huh.
Well, yeah. And that's what the old people would always talk about. We need this snow. We need the
Mhm.
snow. So you want some sweet water? It has to get cold so the trees would give give us that sweet water, what you call
Mhm.
maple syrups, maple
Mm,
sugar.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very good teaching.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they said they needed Mother Earth needed this blanket. It's just like a big quilt. She needs
Mhm.
to rest because she's getting ready for
Mhm.
birthing. I mean, she's getting her body ready. She's resting, and so
Mhm.
when this blanket of snow is on her, all those leaves that had fallen is like they're going to
Yeah.
cover her, and they're going to
Hmm.
give her the nutrients that she needs. And so I
Yeah.
love those stories. It helped me to understand. It helped me to understand why these things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. And that's how we would get the education, right? Is by listening to those stories, to those teachings by from our elders, from our the people that we grew up with and that knew those teachings. And like and that's why we storytelling would happen in the wintertime. And it's to honor those spirits because those spirits work hard throughout the whole year. And we honor them by getting to know them. Like why what purpose did the muskrat have? To know those stories, to know those legends. And why do we hold that eagle in high regard? Like there's stories, there's legends to all of that. And the people knew those stories, and they would tell those stories in the wintertime, because those spirits we have to feast them or let them rest, and honor them. And that's, at least that's what I got from it. And
Hmm.
I always looked forward to that, hearing those legends, hearing those stories. I should have had a notepad back then.
You did. It's here.
Yeah.
The other thing I remember too, when I was looking out the other night, I always liked looking at the sky, because you long time ago when I was young, we used to see um, the northern lights, but
Hmm.
because of so much technology now, we don't see them anymore.
Hmm.
And so this the nightlight, I really enjoy going out and during the wintertime and
Hmm.
looking at the stars, because if you notice the dipper, the handle is seemed to be touching. This is why there's a story in that, why we this is the time that we need to do our ceremonies. and
Hmm.
and you always need to look at the stars, because they still hold that secret code of all our original instructions. And so that's why I like looking at the stars, because we have our creation story, we have all our stories
Hmm.
in the sky world, and everything is telling us. And so when I was out there the other night, I saw a circle around the skirt around grandmother moon.
No.
It was a ring around her. And the old people always said, we're going to have a big storm, so get ready. And so I went and did my shopping. So I got, just in case I was going to be housebound for again for a
Oh,
while. So
yeah.
so I went out and I got my things. And so
Hmm.
because I just went out today because we had so much snow.
Yeah. 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 I like that, reminding me of the Northern Lights. And that's, I appreciate when I travel up in the north. I drive up the James Bay Highway. Um, it's far north, and you don't see that much traffic, especially at night. And a lot of times I drive there late at night. And in
Mhm.
the cold winters, I'll just stop on the road, and I'll just stand outside and look, and I'll see the Northern Lights dancing and changing colors, and it looks like it's just
Yes.
moving. And I just stand out there, and I say my prayers. I say Shimi Gwich, and you know, it's just beautiful to see that, because the sky
Mhm.
is so clear, nice, and it's very cold, and you just see those lights just dancing. It's like there's a powwow going on out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the different shapes, the different colors, it's just so amazing. Yeah.
creation is amazing. How they share that simple gift of the very powerful colors, how they blend together, and it's just like um, Hollywood could never capture that moment. What we
Mhm.
see in with the natural world. Um, we had stories. My grandpa would tell me the stories about Jack Frost, but they always had a name for him in the language. And he says, "So when you go out there, I want you to listen to see if he knows what kind of winter it's going to be next year."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we would go out, or he'd said, "Listen," and you would it's just like he had a big stick. He would touch a
Oh.
tree, and it would you could hear the branches crack. He says
Uh-huh. Yeah.
he's touched that tree, so you would have wood for next year. Wood
Mhm.
for next year. I grew up along the river. My both my parents, one lived at the upper end of the reserve. My father lived at the lower end of the reserve along the river,
Mhm.
and so I lived. I grew up knowing the river, and especially during the winter time, it was like a special treat that the
Mhm.
winter give us, and to see all the community get together and come out when it was cold and they'd be playing hockey or shinny,
Mhm.
we'd be playing that on the ice.
Yeah.
Um, it was it was a time when even the cars could park on the river because that's how cold it got here.
Mhm.
It got
Mhm.
really cold, and when it was time to break, we would by looking at the moon, we would know that pretty soon the river's going to be. So stay away from the river. Stay away because the river was going to erupt, as they say. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, you would hear,
Oh, okay.
and you see all the ice come up like this, and it would be just stand straight up like that. And after a while, they would be kind of frozen together. But that was you don't see that anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think this would keep us young, telling these stories.
Yes. It can be, there's a lot of medicine in that, and it brings back memories of family, right? Because
Yeah.
we're all part of family, like
Yeah.
siblings, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's time when people really came together and just not only shared in company, but shared their knowledge, shared their stories, shared
Yeah.
their experiences, and those experiences kind of became the stories that they would share.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think this is why a lot of people have lost their life skills. You know, those skills to help them to to overcome these challenges. Because in those stories, we would hear how our grandparents they had rough, as they say, really cold winters, but they didn't have everything.
Hmm.
They didn't have everything. They would just wrap their hands with cloth, but
Hmm.
they got through. And then we come to that generation where we use our socks
Hmm.
for our
Hmm.
gloves.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of things they had to learn, right? And
yeah,
whether it's just learning how to set a trap or a snare, but if you got something, I remember my father would say, "Well, now you have to clean it." I'm like, "Geez, I have to do that too." But everything we did, right? There's life skills to it. You learn something. It helps you throughout life. It helps you to
hmm
to build your skills, to build your toolbox, so to speak.
yeah. The food and the food that would be cooked, it seemed to stay in the house longer. The smell during the winter time, it just seemed like you could smell supper even when you woke up in the morning because it would just seem to linger there just to
Mhm.
make you feel comfort. Even
Mm-hmm.
though it was hardly anything, it was just, maybe a potato soup, but it still lingered in the air. It had, if you had um, pan bread, my grandma used to make this pan bread, and she would have put this dough and put it in a pan,
Mm-hmm.
and then she just put it in the oven, and oven bread, and then when it came out she would just break it, and that's what we would have. Is That's how one of our breads. And our mother, when we didn't have a lot of white bread growing up, we
Mm-hmm.
would always have a big bag of flour,
Yeah.
and
Can make lots of bannock.
the bacon grease.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. You put the bacon grease all over your potatoes and all your bannock and just chew on it. My grandpa would he also used lard on his on his biscuit, and then would put some salt on it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Then they would have a big pot of tea. They always had those big um, pots, those for tea, those
Yeah.
big ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They drank tea and told stories.
Yeah.
They would tell stories to us. They would say, "Oh, I remember when I was your age," as they're stirring their tea. Oh no, here we go again. We're going to hear about the old days. I remember
Uh,
how I swore I would never do that to my kids if I had kids, right? And when I had kids, well, I did the same thing. When I was your age, I was already doing this, doing
they tease us, the younger ones. They'll say, "Oh, when we're going to hear those stories again."
that.
They go like this. They have their little fiddle. They go, "Oh gosh."
Yeah.
But I think they miss that. They miss those stories, and
Hmm.
even though they make fun of us, we would say, "Oh yeah, you don't know." And I said, "You're going to say the same thing to your kids."
That's right. That's right. You think you'll never do that? And your own kids will throw that in your face.
Ah.
Oh, boy. You
And
know,
you know what? He's
mhm,
really slept good after all that laughter and all those stories. And just like,
yeah.
your cupboards may have been bare. You didn't have too much blankets, but that
Hmm.
laughter and that time it kept you warm. And I
Hmm.
think that's the greatest gift the Creator give us,
Yeah.
is to be able to
Hmm.
share those moments of resiliency. And
Hmm.
that was a gift that we have, is that laughter.
Hmm. Yes. It can go a long ways in healing, right? It's good medicine. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I'm thinking about is water. You know, when we didn't always drink the lake water either. And back then it was safe to drink, right? You can just drink it right out of the lake. You didn't have to put bleach in there and put it through a whole big factory to drink it. It was safe back then. Today you have to buy it. You have to, and then even then they're saying it's not good for you, even if you buy it. But we had this special water, and we called it spring water.
Yeah.
And you walk in the bush, and even in the dead of winter, it was always flowing. It
Yeah.
never froze. And we would go there at least once a month and get that water, and everything tasted different. It just seemed to be a different kind of water. And I
Yeah.
often I often think today is that spring water still out there? Is it still flowing like that, or did they dry up, or what happens to that? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, we used to have on my grandmother's property, because we lived along the river there. We had a beautiful spring, and she invited the neighbors and all the people whenever
Hmm.
they needed that spring water, just to come and get it. No, it never froze. And
Hmm.
I heard later that a lot of those springs were closed. People were going to close them off because um, times was changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not safe. That's the first thing they said. It's not safe, and they
Mm-hmm.
put that fear into us, and so that we start putting. But that spring was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was good, and I don't know why, because people forget how Mother Earth, she purifies the
Mm-hmm.
waters, purifies our drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
So those wells,
Yeah.
yeah, and we had to be careful had to make sure that wood stove was going all night, or your food would freeze.
Yeah.
Oh, especially your drinking the pail and was
Yeah. Yeah.
it would if it got cold and you had to drink
Yeah.
into it in the morning.
A big barrel of of ice, big barrel of a big chunk of ice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my father always had a rule. He said, "Whoever gets up first, make the fire." But even though we would wake up, we just lay there and just wait and wait for somebody else to make the fire.
That was my brother's responsibility.
Yeah.
He was to tend to that fire, and he slept through it, and I walked over because it was getting cold. I went over and I was trying to wake him up and go, oh, he wouldn't wake up. He played that. He just played that. He was really so I had to go
Yeah.
down and put some wood in the fire. Oh my God. It was, and you just kind of just touch the floor like that
Yeah.
because the floor was cold.
Yeah.
Then you jump back in bed and you put your feet on your siblings and they would just get mad at you. But I tell him, I said, I got up just to keep you warm. And we had our house the roof was like that, and our
Okay.
beds would be right under that angle of the roof,
Okay.
and we always put the little one close to that
Yeah.
part,
Okay.
because when you wake up in the morning, boom, it hit your
Oh,
head
yeah.
at the
Knocking stuff
rafters.
back out.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Such good
and
memories. Eh?
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't have insulation, the snow would come through the windows and it'd be really cold. We when you think about it, we never really had a lot of colds back then because
Hmm.
we grew up in that kind of the cold.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Build a good immune system to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the heat. It's like, oh, it's too warm. I want it to be cold.
And to this very day, I have my room. It has to be cold. My
Hmm.
kids would get bloody nose
Hmm.
if it was too hot
Yeah.
because they were conditioned for cold, because that's how my grandma said you need to start them on learning how to go without. And
Hmm.
I was just like everybody else. I went to the big city after I got married, and where all the conveniences, and
Yeah.
but I missed something, and I knew what it was. It was winter, it was spring, it was fall. it
Yeah.
it was all those seasons that I missed by
Hmm.
hearing nature
Hmm.
talk to us,
Yeah.
how the wind talked to us, and how creation all of them talked to us. And so when my kids were just getting old enough to go to start school, my mom says, you bring them back. I don't want them growing up in a city. They won't know how to live.
Mhm.
And so I did. And The only house that I found was a old house. It was in the days before it would be considered a rich man's house because it was made out of bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that had brick houses in our community were well-to-do farmers, and they would have these big houses with brick. And so my neighbors, my down the road, they had their house was empty because their grandmother had passed on, so they let me live there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big experience for my children, and I'm glad they had it because
Yeah.
um, they had to learn what winter was like. They had to learn, and it helped them to be who they are today. Because my son, he loves the winter. I mean, he loves being out there in the winter time. And they had to walk a whole concession to go. And they were only 7 and 8, walking a whole concession to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And they from being where you turn the heat up and turn the lights on. My children they had to go draw water like I did. They had to get wood like I did. And so I'm very grateful that they had that experience in life. And a lot of mothers will say, oh, I never want my children to go through this. But my mom
Mm-hmm.
had always said, you need to have your children experience this life because they
Mm-hmm.
will know how to be ready next year, and they
Mm-hmm.
will never take anything for granted again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So even really life stories are very play a very important role in our way of life.
Yes. Yeah, you certainly do. There's a lot of teachings in that, a lot of things to learn. So those experiences get passed down, right, from one generation to the next. And you're right, like, and you do need to experience that. You know, people go camping today. They go out on the land and they'll bring their computers, they'll bring their phones, they'll and then they're saying, "Oh, I'm roughing it." they'll bring their heater, they'll bring their heater in their tent. I'm really roughing it this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to get a phone, if I'll get a cell signal. I'm guilty of that too. And I think, geez, I got soft over the years. Before, we didn't even have cell phones. We didn't have, all these luxuries that we have today. We didn't have that back then. You had to rely on, how well you listen, how well did you learn from, those teachings, from those experiences, right?
Yeah.
I always thought my father was mean to me. Why do you make me get water every day? Why are my pails getting bigger and heavier as I grow? But it kept me in shape, right? Yeah.
It sure did. It kept us physically firm.
Yeah.
When you were telling your story about logging, because we had to get wood, and a lot of my childhood friends, they came around and they supported me when it was nice. Back then, everybody came and helped one another. That was
Hmm.
they never asked for anything, just a
Yeah.
meal or
Yeah.
whatever. It was so nice.
Hmm.
All my young friends, who they would come and they helped me, and so we went back to our bush and for my kid we to load up some wood. What we did was I said we need a big sleigh, and I said let's take the hood off of my car. So we put a rope on it. And that's what we did. We load the hood up, and we had piles of wood, and we load it up and just take it down so I improvise.
Yeah. Yeah. You use whatever you have and figure it out, eh? Yeah.
Oh dear.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to stop for a while because my jaws are getting sore.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to take this little break because my jaws are getting sore just having so much laughter and my sides are getting sore.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
That's why it's important to have others sitting with us, because when one finishes, the other one takes over. That's how it was done a long time ago. They all
Mhm.
shared their stories,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it made the evening go by so fast. And one of the most important thing, it we slept all night. We didn't. We would like sugar plums dancing in our head because we were so content. Even though we didn't have everything, we always were content just
Mhm.
to just to have a bed and to be able to sleep. It was
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, all those memories can stay alive and, just really be a part of your joy and happiness today and your connection, right? Because
mhm.
I think everything we go through in life, whether it's good or bad, it can serve us in some way, in some way. It can help us. Those were what we can consider hard times today because we just flick a switch today. We have light. We have, you know,
Yeah,
we turn the knob. We have heat. We don't wake
yeah,
up with a cold floor or or out waiting someone else to try and make the fire. It's turn
yeah,
on the stove and you have your heat and you're cooking. Plug in the electric kettle and you have your hot water. But yeah, those days, it really changed a lot. I remember how when we actually lived in Red Gut, life was different there. Life was different then, and it really felt like a community. Like you said, you don't ask for anything. You just help. You're a community, right?
yeah.
And there was that collective, that life, right? That community, and because we're out on the land with everything
Mhm,
was just so natural. And then we moved to our new location where it is now, and still there was no electricity, but there was something different about it because this is a different place, a different, and yeah, we
mhm.
still had some of the same jobs, the same work, that we did as, whatever our roles were. But over time, it changed. It changed. Electricity came into the community, and one family now had a car, and we thought, "Whoa, this is major." They have a car, and then pretty soon another family has a car, and all that change, right, throughout time, and with that change comes a change in that whole lifestyle,
Yeah, it
and
did.
and yeah, and a lot of things that we did back then, we were no longer doing those things anymore. Like we weren't even sitting around listening to stories in the wintertime. It was,
Yeah.
that whole New Year's celebrations and all that. Even that took on a whole different meaning.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it changes. I don't know if it's progress, know, and maybe it is in some ways, but also it's like you lose a little bit of something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can always pass on those stories, right? Pass on those
Yeah.
stories, pass on those, you know, create that picture for the younger generation.
Yeah.
Because to go through it is what helped us to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had to survive.
I like how you mentioned cars.
Yeah,
Oh, we all thought we were rich, and then when somebody got a car, oh, gee, they're a little more richer than us. But the cars back then were mostly station wagons, right?
yeah, Oh yeah, had to
That
fit
was
as many people in as we could, and you didn't have to wear seatbelts. You could pile up on top of one another.
or you could ride in the back of the truck, a pickup truck, and you
Yeah,
didn't.
that's right.
Yeah. So one of the question was, when did we start learning to drive? I says, I was going to say, drive what? I used to have a team of horses because my dad taught me when we were plowing the land was
Mhm.
to harness up the horses and do that.
Yeah.
And that was my greatest joy of my first experience of driving because I was just young and I was always adventurous. And I would tell my dad, I said, let me try. He said, okay. And I said, how do you do that? I've been watching him. And so he come behind me and he was proud of me. And that was different than when I got in here, when he gave me the opportunity to drive a car, the standard, the fathers are like this. Oh. It was easier driving the horses than it was
Oh,
to drive a car.
yeah.
My father, I think he got gray when I started. Because he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I had started it up and I had just stepped on the gas and then he just hollered at me. I just let the wheel go like that. Good thing we had a big open field.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep. That standard. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah, standards. Yeah.
Oh, we learned from the tractor.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
We were more, my grandparents were farmers. They had
Okay.
big barns.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, they would have these tractors, these old tractors, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when Grandpa and Grandma went to town.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the oldest cousins or the oldest ones, boys would they would. Grandpa says, "Yeah, you can go and plow the field." And so they would give us all us younger ones a try. And so
Oh,
you can see us all on the wagon, oh, a bunch of us on the wagon, and
yeah.
my turn to drive, and then we would be going all over the field. And that's what I miss is riding on that wagon.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
we would do it in the evenings. We would do it in the evenings. And when we got old enough and we had our own family, my brother um, called his friend that had a wagon and tractor, and he says, "I'd like to give my family a treat." And and so he called us up and he says, "Come on over." He says, "We're going for a hay ride." Oh, that
Oh,
was the best.
yeah.
He says, "See
Uh-huh.
all of us." Yeah. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that was the best.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. The only hayride I went on was when we were at grandmother's voice location. Remember, we rode on
Yeah.
the guy gave us a tour. Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
We
yeah.
used
Mhm.
My dad used to loan us out to to the neighbors, but in turn we would get help them bring in the crops and everything. So we would get bags of potatoes or whatever, and we would help them. I said, I'm going to make sure I don't have any mud flaps. Tossing hay, we had to throw the pitch hay and throw it
Oh,
up on the wagon and stack the wagon. And
no.
that was the best part was getting on top of that load of wagon. You're right on top of that. You climb to the top of
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, that was fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep, we helped the neighbors and the neighbors helped us. And
Yeah.
that was really and I'm very lucky that my neighbor, he lives across the road. Married my cousin, and well, we grew up as his family and our family. We grew up together, and so he lives across the road. So he comes over, and we're just like old times,
Mm-hmm.
doing things together. I
Yeah.
go over there and help, and he goes. So we're helping one another. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
It's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
big difference in living in a city.
Yeah. Yeah. You're pretty much isolated, I guess, say in the city, and
Yeah.
or you're as in back home, you would know everybody and you're connected, and yeah, and there's a way how community operates or functions, and it's to help one another.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to have big skating ponds because it would. We were always blessed that it would be like a big flood or rain, and then the ponds would. Our field over here. Oh my gosh, we had a big field, and all the kids would come down, and that's why I said our house was just little. But my dad says invite them. It seems like when we were all in the house got like this.
Yeah.
And then when we would go out skating, my dad would tie our shoes and mismatch them. So when we
Oh.
came back, we had to. It was like a scavenger hunt. Which shoe is mine? And so he made it fun,
Oh.
laughing.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
says, "Oh," and even for Halloween, I remember all these different seasons. There was always some activity that the people would do, and it was even the older people. They just had just as much fun as us being being out there and playing in the different seasons.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
even or even when we cleared this land where I'm living now, it
Hmm.
was everybody was involved in the family. And we used to have a stone boat to collect all the stones when they're clearing out the field. Even our grandma, she came and she sat on she sat on the stone boat, and she dad was driving the tractor and he had jerked it. My grandma rolls off.
Oh.
But it was even in the wintertime we would go for a big sleigh ride, and even the grandmas would get on because that's
Oh. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Oh.
grandmas would, and we'd be all bundled up, and they always had I don't know. Did you ever have those big containers of hot chocolate?
Mm.
No?
No.
Well,
No.
we had to buy that, those big containers
Okay. And
for
make
hot
hot
chocolate.
chocolate. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Wow.
I grew up on cow's milk too because my grandma lived next, they lived on the boundary line and my grandparent, we would go, they would say, go and get some, when we stayed over at grandma's, we would walk through the fields to go get milk. And it
Hmm.
would be time we got back, it would be icicles. It
No.
was steaming because when they finished milking a cow, it'd be just steaming because it was so
Okay.
cold. And so when we're carrying the bucket back up the hill, time we got up there was like little ice cubes in there.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh,
That's cold.
yeah, that was cool. Oh, my grandpa had one of these old sleighs, like Santa Claus's sleigh,
No. Okay. Okay.
and he he put it up in the wintertime. He put it up in the loft, and we were all went to grandma and grandpa's that time, and grandpa and grandma and our parents went to town.
Hmm.
So we wanted to go sleigh ride. So we're thinking, how going to get that down from the loft? Oh, we got ways. So we did. We hooked it up and we brought it out down. We had to get all of us cousins to get together because if the few of them, they would just go up like this, and so
Oh. Yeah.
so we so we brought it down and we pulled it. We had instead of horses, we had to be the horses. We had to
Oh.
pull it, because my grandparents lived on the top of the hill that overlooked the river, and so
Okay.
we would get in. We would get in. Oh, a whole bunch of us would pile in that sleigh, and then the younger the younger boys would push it. The
Yeah.
older boys would push it, and we go flying down that hill. We
Oh.
had to hold up those those bars.
Okay. Okay.
And we would fly in down there. Oh, it was all excitement, all that snow just flying in your face.
Oh,
And we get to the bottom and we look at one another. Now, who's going to pull us back up? Oh, then we would look, we were doing it all afternoon. And we said, oh, we looked, we seen where the position of the sun. We better get this back up there before Grandpa gets home. So we would have to get it all back. We had to put it back up in the barn. And when Grandpa came home, he said, "How did your day go?" "Oh, we had lots of fun, Grandpa." He probably knew that we did that.
yeah, most likely. Hard to hide anything from them.
Yeah, you could never hide anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always gave you that look. Okay. The squinty little eyes. Uh-huh. They knew more than you they let you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been fun. That it reminds me that it almost sounds like you're dashing through the snow.
We sure were. But we were grumbling when we had to go up the hill.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminded me of the elves, all of us hanging on that bar on both sides. We all had to pull it back up.
Oh,
But we sacrificed that just for that good ride. We said, "We'll
yeah.
do anything just to have that good ride."
That's right. It takes a lot of work to have a good time.
We had to lift it up to get it over this fence, this big
Oh yeah.
fence. But
Oh,
yeah, so we had to push it over the fence, and we, oh gosh, what memories. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
I
winter
wanted to
was,
jump in all night. You guys, they're so lovely. Just giggling and sharing stories, and this little chat is like everyone's remembering with you. And
Awesome.
yeah, have you been able to see it? Yeah,
No,
I have.
I know, Dennis, you don't want to.
no,
You're like,
no. I don't know how to.
oh, I thought I should. You'd have to put your glasses on. I know that because I have to too. But I'll put some up here because Renee, and it's true. When I hear you giggle, it makes me just feel so happy. But someone said that about I miss your laugh, and there's some nice messages in here of just sharing memories, and I know myself a lot of the things that I heard. There's similar stories. We just have a little more technology along the way, but I did a lot of the things that you did, I think, in just my time, and maybe not stealing my grandpa's sled, but that was a good one. I could see it. Oh, what a wonderful little visit you guys had, and I thank you so much for sharing, Dennis. It's nice to see you in this.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, can you see the messages now?
Eh? Yeah, I can see them now.
Yeah. And you can see some with the same last name as you. I think Melody and yeah.
Awesome.
Verna Windego.
Oh, my sister. Hi, sis.
Yeah, she's telling you the dumplings.
She probably has. Oh, dumplings. Yeah. Should I tell a story about when Dad learned how to drive? When we were the family that had a car, when we got our car, it was before power steering, right? And
Yeah.
My father only has one arm, right? So he had to learn how to drive, and so he was already up there, right? He already had all of us, so he backed the car up, and he crashed right into the house, and we were all sitting in the kitchen having breakfast, and we thought there was an earthquake. Oh my God. My dad was like, okay, who put that damn house there?
Oh no, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that was
But
crazy.
but we never ever patched up that hole in the house because we wanted that constant reminder. Brought a
I
lot of
remember when my parents got their first car. I think I was about 10 years old, and I remember we were taking pictures. We were all like posing and laying on the car and posing with like Polaroid. I
uh-huh.
have the pictures still. My sister was like this on the car, and
Yeah.
laying on it like it was this. It was a used like Cougar, I think, something like
Oh,
that.
uh-huh.
Yeah. That's so funny. There's some great, like, just, this is just so healing, just to sit
Mhm.
and hear, and what like really just made me feel comfortable was like the rhythm of your conversation, the rhythm of the words. I just feel like, especially me, I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's go, get the conversation going and get caught up and I get all giddy. But I found that like my body was just like resting, in your words and your conversation back and forth. So I'm extremely grateful for that little hour and a half pause to, to just being
Mhm.
grateful to
Yeah.
have memories
Yeah. And
Mhm.
it made time go by so quickly.
Yeah.
so quickly.
Yeah. So now I'm here in Ottawa, and now tomorrow I'm gonna go get some snare wire and set up some snares. I
Be
have
careful who you
oatmeal. I
catch.
have oatmeal. See if I can recreate my mother's dish. rabbit,
Oh,
rabbit with oatmeal and dumplings.
oh, the rabbit. I remember rabbits. Yuck. But, hey, it's you got to eat. Somebody, May just said, your stories are a reminder that we don't need a lot to be happy. And,
Mhm.
I think that in this time, it's, this is what we need to do is spend time together and just reflecting and cuddling and remembering and yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I thank you for inviting me here tonight. I really enjoyed my time and enjoyed talking with Grandma Renee, and of course seeing Jody here also. Thank
Yeah,
you for
thank
the
you.
invite. Uh-huh.
Yeah, Grandma Renee, are you all talked out? And we're just gonna say see ya.
I needed this.
Mm-hmm.
I needed this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful that we were able to share the laughter to bring everyone else up because it's contagious, as you know. When
Mm-hmm.
one starts, you're all going to start laughing with us. So I hope you had some good belly laughs tonight, and I hope you sleep good tonight, and that everything that you heard tonight will help you to see the good in everything, that you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And just acknowledging and waving to Uncle Neil, who's I think he's laying on the couch at home somewhere watching this because he wanted to see it from a different angle. That's how I'm feeling. I'll find out tomorrow. Anyway, thank you so much, Dennis, for being here with us. We really appreciate the time, and Grandma, you're amazing.